Hello, and welcome to my podcast, Good Grief. My name is Dr. Christine Malone, and in this podcast, we talk about trauma, tragedy, and survival. In each episode, I will interview someone that has gone through grief in some way, and we will discuss the impact it has had on their life. By sharing these stories, we hope that others won't feel alone should they be going through similar situations. Enjoy. All right, listeners, thank you so much for being with me. My guest today is going to talk about the end of a relationship and how he's coped with the grief of losing that relationship. So if you wouldn't mind, would you please just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, my name is Zach, and I was married for almost 9 years and um, two kids, good life, owned a house once, and um, did all the normal things that you would assume that relationships do. You meet someone special and you fall in love and you get married, you buy a house and you have kids. I feel like that's a pretty typical, normal growth process as a relationship goes in America today, and um, we followed along in that to a T almost. And we had struggles along the way, but about 9 years in, uh, everything ended within 10 seconds. An unexpected collapse of a relationship that I thought would be a lifelong relationship. It's led to a divorce. It led to, the conversations regarding custody of the kids, the conversations about how do you do this alone? Like, I don't want to not see my kids. It brought upon a whole bank of life questions that I never thought I'd have to ask myself. Immediately hit me like a bus. And it just felt like my world had just fallen apart. What was once there and seemingly whole was no longer there, and it hurt. There was a lot of blame at the beginning. There was a lot of blaming each other. There was a lot of depression, a lot of missed days at work. This happened back in 2000. It was 2018. That all happened. I had just started a job at Boeing, and I had recently made a decision to go make quote unquote real money, family money, no more me money. I had worked in the in an industry that I connected really well because it was like playtime to me. But I realized that industry wasn't paying me enough money, and I needed to provide more for my family. So to get that position at Boeing, and then only a couple of months later to run into this unexpected failure, hit hard in a lot of ways. That was 2018 in the spring, almost. I don't know how many years ago that is right now. 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 4 years ago.
So
it's
been a few years since then, and you've divorced and so on. So you have, I think it's 2 children together. So how have you structured things so that your kids are somewhat buffered from any negativity from this relationship ending?
Well, what started, was very chaotic and very heavy, um, for both of us. I'll speak for both of us. I think that I didn't see it coming, but uh, with young kids, immediately we found ourselves pretending, um, for the sake of the kids. We she still lived with me, and we would take the kids down to the park still, and we would go to the lake, and um, that was a very odd spring of just not knowing and what was going to happen next, and then the conversation of where do we go from here, um, came up, and I was on the fence of like, hey, if we could we could make this better. If we can get through this, we can get through anything. And she said the exact opposite. She wanted a divorce, um, and I think that was the moment reality really hit, and it was time to separate. I think for the sake of the kids, we stayed very cordial uh, through the process. Um, those conversations regarding the next step, uh, but there was so much tension in the air. You can cut it with a knife. It was a challenging a challenging experience to not know what happens next. The thought of not being able to see my kids every day was heart wrenching. Um, for myself, all of this was very new to me, and from my perspective, it almost seemed thought out. Um, there was already an acceptance on the other side of my ex, and that was how I perceived it. So that hurt more, like it felt like there was preparation on one end, but on my end there was none. Um, so I'm not trying to sit here and victimize myself in our conversation, because divorce happens, and I think that for a long time I held on really tight. For a long time I thought things would get better. Um, After we separated, I went into a depression, not knowing how to move on with my life without my kids half the time or more, not knowing what the answers were going to be. What was the judge going to say? What happens next? All those unknowns to me were just so painful. But we we stayed cordial with each other for the sake of the kids, and we started splitting time fairly for the sake of the kids, um, before the divorce officially hit. Nobody wants to be told they're not going to get to see their kid half the time, and the other half the time they're going to be with you. Um, but that was a reality that I had to learn how to accept. Losing something that you held onto so tightly, and then not having it, leaves you feeling so empty, and then putting kids in the middle of it is just, it's even more so. And I witnessed my own parents divorce when I was in high school, and my dad didn't handle it well. uh, he struggled to deal with that, for over 10 years. he I told myself from the very beginning, like, when I think there was a moment there where I realized that I had to carry on, and I had to go forward, and like I had to relearn how to do everything by myself. I had to I had no help, like it was just me now. And there was struggle. There was struggle along with that, but um, there was a turning point. Um, it's divorce happens so frequently. I think I almost everyone I know probably has been divorced. But it's if looking back now, I'm grateful because we were young and we didn't put the work in. And to be fair, I don't think I knew what the work was. Um, I didn't know a lot, and going through divorce reshaped my life to picking up books and reading and learning. I went through a moment of self blame, a lot of self blame, that I've, for the most part, I've kept to myself. Um, because there were certainly things that I could have done differently. I'm not saying that we could have saved our relationship. I'm just saying that I didn't know the things that I know now. And now that I have this experience behind me, I can apply these tools that I've learned along the way to real life, not to real life, but to the next relationship. I could be of a more of an active member in my marriage. I could certainly change a lot, and I wouldn't have had that experience or that knowledge without that experience.
So you've led me to the spot where I know you are in a new relationship now. And I'd like to know, how have you applied what you learned from the grief of losing that marriage to the new relationship now?
Um, you know, this conversation, that conversation of that comes up a lot because she had gone through a similar experience, and um, the there's these little moments where things come up, and I wonder why I'm so frustrated with a certain subject. And to as an example, just the slightest bit of not knowing um what she's doing or where she's at. And like there was for the very beginning there, you I tried to be very like, hey, like I want to have like this relationship. You do what you want to do and be free, and like that's be yourself, like because I need to be myself, and I know that's a healthy way to live. But there's this like there was this dark mystery whenever, like, she wanted to go out and see a concert with a friend, and you don't know what she's doing and where she's at, and you feel like this, not distrust, but this unknown, and like you feel it challenging yourself, and that's challenging a relationship. And I could have taken the route of not acknowledging it and not having the conversation about it, which would probably have been easy, but I think that would have manifested into a lot of personal issues on myself, with myself, like anxiety, and those things compound on themselves over time. And instead, I decided to tactfully have the conversation, like, "Hey, this is how I feel, and it's not that I don't trust you, or I don't want you enjoying yourself, but there's this like feeling that I'm having, and I'm trying to identify and understand why." And I'm so grateful that she has she's brilliant, she's smart, and she sees me, and she can recognize that I'm being 100% raw and honest with her, and we can have that conversation. And that is just one of so many kinds of conversations we had uh, at the beginning of our relationship when we started getting really serious, and we still do to this day. I think that's where I recognize that's what a mature relationship is. That's what we should always be seeking when we are looking for a partner to share our lives with. Uh, it, there's understanding. There's understanding of each other's history and our past, and there's a understanding of the struggles that we came from and the way they've manifested themselves in our lives. And um, it's not easy to talk about those things, trust issues and all that silly stuff, because you certainly trust them, but there's something eating at you that might come from somewhere else in life. And those are those demons that you have to learn how to silence. And the only way to silence them is to talk about it.
The word that comes to mind for me, Zach, is transparency. So being transparent with what I want, what you want, what she wants, whatever, and where you are. So I know for me, especially when it comes to issues of trust, I need to be very clear on what I'm looking for and what I need and what I want, um, in order to make that relationship work. So I'm guessing that's what I'm hearing from you, or I think that's what I'm hearing from you. So if you were to be talking to someone who's just recently learned that their relationship is ending for whatever reason, and they didn't want it to, what advice would you give? What would you say you should do or shouldn't do in those moments where you realize this is over and there's nothing I can do to make it change?
It's so easy to tell somebody to just let it go and just move on, because if one person doesn't want to be with you, you shouldn't hold on so tight. So easy to say that, so hard to receive it. And the the best advice, I think, initially right off the bat, is to just breathe and know that this is going to take time. It's nothing that's going to happen overnight. I tried to make it happen overnight. The moment I realized that I wanted to get through the grieving part of divorce, I was like on fire, trying to just descend that mountain. I just want to get on the other side. And that did not do me any favors at all. It hurt more. I ran myself into toxic relationships, bad decisions, and just in the end, I didn't learn anything until I really slowed down and I took the time to recognize the path that led me to where I was, and then I can start asking the questions like, how do I change myself if I have to? How do I grow from this experience? And it's a slow process. It's if you don't see it coming and you don't want it to come and it comes, it hurts. Accept that it hurts and be okay with that, because it's gonna hurt. I I feel like we live in a world where we all want instant gratification and we want our pain to go away like immediately, and please take these meds and let it all go away. But that's not how you deal with shit in real life. I feel like you have to absorb that pain. You are going to have scars. So let them become scars, because you'll look at those scars in a couple of years and you'll be so thankful that you went through that experience, because now you can bring so much more light into your next relationship. I'm grateful. I look back, and so many times I've wanted to say this to my ex, is in a non-condescending way. I've just wanted to tell her thanks, because I wouldn't be where I'm at right now. I wouldn't be on this journey. I wouldn't be in this amazing relationship with this person if it wasn't for those things that all happened. Like, they were all necessary. Like, she had obviously accepted and moved on, and I wasn't ready. I was holding on to something that wasn't really there anymore. And once I learned how to let go and go through the grieving process, and once I realized that I needed to go through the grieving process slowly, and I needed to dissect those things, and that's just me. I needed to dissect and know. I like to know. I like to question and find the answers. And it's, to this day, I still am learning, and I don't think I'll ever stop learning. But I am thankful, and that's the weirdest part about it all.
Right. So I appreciate you sharing that. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Good Grief. To hear more about my personal story, please pick up a copy of the book, The Spider Killer, a memoir of trauma, tragedy, and survival. You can find the book on Amazon and Kindle.